Hey guys, Brian Davis and Denny Sipley here.
Hi, guys.
Super excited to have you guys with us. As you join us, please let us know where you're tuning in from, any questions that you have about landlording or rental investing issues in general. We get together every week, every Tuesday, and we talk about a landlord related issue or a real estate investing related issue. Last week, we talked about tenant screening for higher ROI and how you can rent to longer term, higher return tenants by screening them specifically for long-term tenants who are low impact on your property and who are going to be with you for the long haul and prevent those costly turnovers. This week, we are talking about lease agreements and how you can structure your lease to protect you better and to protect your property better. So, Denny, why don't you talk to us just for a second here about maintenance and what leases should include about maintenance?
Well, the first thing is you want to get as detailed as possible, Brian. I think so many people say, you know, this is what I'll do, or, I'll fix I'll make repairs up to $50. And then, you know, it kind of leaves it too open-ended. I would be as specific as possible. Um, there's been a lot of hoopla in the group about light bulbs. I think that it's not a bad thing to include that you don't change light bulbs unless you want to. But most people have the common sense, but it can't hurt to add something like that in if it's something that you've had issues with before.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, and we have seen that again and again in the Facebook group where landlords are at their wits' end because their tenants are calling them because a light bulb is out. And the last thing you want to do as a landlord is hop to change a light bulb every time one goes out in one of your units. A couple other things that might be worth including in a maintenance clause are things like snow shoveling, mowing the lawn, raking the lawn. Air filters are one that I'm big on, changing the air filters every 3 months.
Just to go back to snow shoveling, you be very careful with that, because if you do leave that in your renter's hands and your state landlord law says otherwise, because we all have we live under the warranty of habitability. I never can say that. And each state has one. And sometimes, especially those of us who live like in Pennsylvania where it's cold and snowy, can get into trouble if that's, technically something a tenant can't be responsible for and they slip and fall. So just be careful.
Well, that brings up a second point here that is worth getting into a little bit. Let's talk about state-specific lease clauses. So, what can you tell us about those for leases?
Well, a lot of people use, and we offer one too, the free leases, and often they don't have the state clauses in there. And there are tons of, some states are really kind of simple and not too tough, but you have like California and Oregon just came out with a whole bunch of laws, and you really want to keep up on those things. You want to make sure that you are using a state-specific lease, because when you go to court, the last thing you want is to hear a judge say, this isn't allowed, and then you're back to square one in an eviction, which can cost you time and money, lost rent. So
thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen it. I've seen and heard judges say, this isn't allowed. And I've had it happen, to be honest with you. Technically, now everybody does it in Pennsylvania, so I'm not telling you to do this or not do this. I'm not an attorney. But I went to court, and in a lease that this big company that I managed for, they insisted on using that the tenant is responsible for the first $25 to avoid light bulb change issues. And the judge, he saw that in there and threw the whole thing out. I had to go back. It was a mess. So you got to be careful.
No question. And, speaking of maintenance issues and repairs, what do you include in your leases for tenants, and they're communicating with you about, when there is a maintenance issue or when there's a repair problem? How do you handle that with your leases?
I make them tell me. So I have it in the lease that they have to tell me even if they're responsible for fixing it. And that helps you in two ways. You have the famous renter who decides not to pay rent, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you hear that, you know, the reason not paying rent is because there's been a leaky something.
Oh, sure.
And,
yeah,
you know, they never told you this, but if that clause is in the lease, it kind of protects you in court even. You know, they're told they're supposed to tell me this, they didn't, and it helps. So whether you make them responsible for repairs or not, you have it in the lease that they have to tell you of all repairs needed.
I just have to throw out there, you know, many tenants in that situation will also say something like, oh, well, you know, I did let the landlord know. I told them. And that's where things like our communication tracking through our landlord app can do wonders for you.
Big time.
It will track and record all communications between you and your tenant. So there's none of that he said, she said stuff.
No, and you know what? Stay off the telephone with your renters and stop arguing with them. We don't need to do that anymore. We're in a whole different world where everything can be put down in a text, email, letter, or on our app.
Fair enough. All right, so let's talk about maintenance issues just for one more second here. So one of the things that I'm big on is documenting the condition of the property when the tenant moves in, and then when the tenant moves out. So what do you recommend to do that?
You have to use a move-in, move-out inspection report. You must use them. Don't make the mistake of going through, jotting some notes down, and not having that either new renter or renter moving out sign it. Because that signature, that's kind of gold, really. I mean, when you're going to go back to charge them, they're pretty much saying, yes, I'm aware that I did this. So have it before and have it after. And what I usually do is take the one I used before, and I'll go in and use that same one afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And, you know, I got to plug our app one last time here. We do let you upload not only your signed lease and your signed move-in, move-out condition statement to the landlord app, we also let you upload as many photos as you want to document.
That is really, because, you know, renters are also taking pictures. So you want to make sure you're taking pictures as well. And if you have a place to keep them, perfect. You don't have to worry about losing them. And where is it in my cloud? You don't have to worry about it. It's right there.
Yeah, and it is sorted by rental unit as well. All right, so Deni, just one or two last questions here for you about lease clauses and lease policies that can protect you. Do you do anything for guest policies in your leases?
Always, because that helps. Again, there's so many things that helps. One, it helps the sneak move in. All of a sudden, there's a boyfriend and 6 kids. Yeah. And let's face it, every renter is wear and tear on your property. You may not think it is, or if you're paying water and sewer, that's more money that you're paying out. So I limit, you know, whatever you choose it to be. In my leases, I use 7 days as a guideline. Make sure it's within your state laws. Most of it is.
Like if someone spends 7 days out of each month, you mean?
7 consecutive.
7 consecutive days.
Yeah, is what I use. And then I, you know, I'm right on top of things. Like if I get any complaints or if I drive by and I see a car there frequently, I mean, I might shoot a text and say, you know, did somebody else move in? You want to make sure, is this a guest or is this somebody that moved in?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, you do need to stay on top of your units, of your tenants as well, because they will push your boundaries. It's what people do. It's human nature. And it's your job as a landlord to defend those boundaries. It's something that it's a theme we return to again and again in our property management course, in our articles, in our Facebook Lives as well. So I'm going to add a link here in the comment section for an article where you can read more about protective lease clauses that you can add to not only protect you and your personal liability as a landlord, but also to physically protect your property. And while we're at it,
and protect yourself. Yeah, that's what you kind of said.
So we also do have a free lease that we make available through our landlord app. We also sell premium state-specific leases. Going to include a link here to our where you can find some more information about our landlord app if you want to create a free lease. And with that, Deni, is there anything else you want to talk to the audience about today when it comes to lease agreements, clauses, anything that people need to know about protecting themselves as a landlord?
Just kind of like what we say with tenant screening. I mean, if you don't screen your tenants, you have more of a likelihood of getting a problem. And if you don't use a lease, you have more of a chance of encountering problems. So
Yeah.
those are really important. And if you want to be successful in this business, they're boring, but they're important.
The fundamentals, the boring but critical fundamentals.
Exactly.
So true.
They're better boring than having a tenant calling you or not paying rent or whatever. Loud parties.
Yeah, and look, as a landlord, this drama, that's no good. You want boring.
Yes.
Boring is just the rent showing up in the mail every month with no issues at your property. So with that, I'm Brian Davis here with my co-founder, Deni Sapli, and we will look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday at 12:30 Eastern. Have a great week,
See you on the flip side. Bye.